Good morning. It's 1:47 my time. I'm sure you ladies are in bed by now. But I wanted to go back to chapter 2 and 3. I wanted to read from my Jerusalem Bible. I just feel like there's some words written here that explain some things differently. So I'm going to read chapter 2 and 3 out of the Jerusalem Bible, and then talk about the notes that I've come up with. Excuse me. So, chapter 2. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had a series of dreams. His mind was troubled. Sleep deserted him. Now remember, what's that old song say? There's no rest for the wicked. Well, the Jerusalem Bible speaks of no happiness for the wicked. And so a troubled mind, to me, no happiness there. The king then had magicians and enchanters, sorcerers, and Chaldeans summoned to tell the king what his dreams meant. They arrived and stood in the king's presence. The king said to them, "I have had a dream, and my mind is disturbed by a desire to understand the dream." The Chaldeans answered the king, "O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will reveal its meaning for you." The king answered the Chaldeans, "This is my firm resolve." So he's been plotting and scheming and thinking about this because he's got a firm resolve. "If you cannot tell me what my dream was and what it means, I will have you torn limb from limb, and your houses razed to the ground. If, on the other hand, you can tell me what I dreamed and what it means, I will give you presents, rewards, and high honor. So tell me what I dreamed and what it means." Verse 7. A second time they said, "Let the king tell his dream to the servants, and we will reveal its meaning." But the king retorted, "It is plain to me that you are trying to gain time, knowing my proclaimed and firm resolve. Your intention is not to interpret my dream, but to make me misleading and torturous, speechless while the time goes by. So tell me what my dream was, and I shall know whether you can interpret it or not." Verse 10. The Chaldeans answered the king, "Nobody in the world could find out the king's trouble. What is more, no other king, governor, or chief would think of putting such a question to any magician, enchanter, or Chaldean. The question the king asks is difficult, and no one can find the king an answer to it except the gods, whose dwelling is not with creatures of flesh." At this, the king flew into a rage and ordered all the Babylonian sages to be put to death. On publication of the decree to have the sages killed, search was made for Daniel and his companions to have them put to death. With shrewd and cautious words, however, Daniel approached Arioch, commander of the king's executioners. When he was on his way to kill the Babylonian sages, he said to the Arioch, the royal marshal, "Why has the king issued such an urgent decree?" Arioch explained matters to Daniel, 16, and Daniel went off to ask the king for a stay of execution to give him the opportunity of revealing his interpretation to the king. Daniel asked to be taken for a stay of execution, to give him the opportunity of revealing his interpretation to the king. Verse 17. Daniel then went home and told his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, what happened, urging them to beg the God of heaven to show his mercy in this mysterious affair, so that Daniel and his friends might be spared the fate of other Babylonian sages. Verse 19. The mystery was then revealed to Daniel in a night vision. And Daniel blessed the God of heaven. This is what Daniel said. May the name of God be blessed forever and ever, since wisdom and power are his alone. His to control the procession of times and seasons, to make and unmake kings, to confer wisdom on the wise, and knowledge on those with wit to discern. His to uncover depths and mysteries, to know what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. Verse 23. To you, God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise for having given me wisdom and intelligence. Now you have shown me what we asked you. So you have revealed the king's trouble to us. Verse 24. So Daniel went to see Arach, whom the king had made responsible for putting the Babylonian sages to death. On going in, he said, do not put the Babylonian sages to death. Take me into the king's presence, and I will reveal the meaning to the king. Verse 25, Arach lost no time in bringing Daniel to the king. I imagine not. Among the exiles from Judah, he said, I have discovered a man who can reveal the meaning to the king. The king said to Daniel, who had been given the name Belteshazzar, can you tell me what my dream was and what it means? Facing the king, Daniel replied, none of the sages, enchanters, magicians, or wizards has been able to tell the king the truth of the mystery which the king propounded. Verse 28, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and who has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what it is to take place in the days to come. These, then, are the dream and the visions that pass through your head as you lay in bed. O king, on your bed your thoughts turn to what would happen in the future. And the revealer of mysteries disclosed to you what it is to take place. The mystery has been revealed to me, not that I am wiser than any other man, but for this sole purpose, that the king should learn what it means, and you should understand your innermost thoughts. Verse 31, you have had a vision, O king. This is what you saw, a statue, a great statue of extreme brightness, stood before you, terrible to see. The head of this statue was of fine gold. Its chest and arms were of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet part iron, part earthenware, clay. While you were gazing, a stone broke away, untouched by any hand, and struck the statue, struck its feet of iron and earthenware and shattered them. And then iron and earthenware, bronze, silver, gold, all broke into small pieces as fine as chaff on the threshing floor in summer. The wind blew them away, leaving not a trace behind. And the stone that had struck the statue grew into a great mountain, filling the whole earth. This was the dream. Now when we explained to the king what it means, you, O king, king of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given sovereignty, power, strength, and glory, the sons of men, the beasts of the field, the birds of heaven, wherever they live, he has entrusted your rule, making you king of them all. You are the golden head. 39. And after you, another king will rise, not so great as you, and then a third of bronze, which will rule the whole world. There will be a fourth kingdom, hard as iron that shatters and crushes all, like iron that breaks everything to pieces. It will crush and break all the earlier kingdoms. The feet you saw, part earthenware, part iron, are a kingdom which will be split in two, but which will retain something of strength of iron, just as you saw the iron and the clay of the earthenware mixed together. Verse 42. The feet were part iron, part earthenware. The kingdom will be partly strong and partly weak. And just as you saw the iron and clay of the earthenware mixed together, so the two will be mixed together in the seed of man. But they will not hold together any more than iron will blend with earthenware. Verse 44. In the time of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And this kingdom will not pass into the hands of another race. It will shatter and absorb all the previous kingdoms, and itself last forever. Verse 45. Just as you saw the stone untouched by the hand break from the mountain and shatter iron, bronze, earthenware, silver, and gold, the great God has shown the king what it is to take place. The dream is true, interpretation exact. 46. At this, King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel. He gave orders for Daniel to be ordered an oblation and a fragrant sacrifice. The king said to Daniel, your God must be the God of gods, the master of kings, and the revealer of mysteries, since you have been able to reveal this mystery. The king conferred high rank on Daniel and gave him many handsome presents. He also made him governor of the whole province of Babylon and heard of all the sages of Babylon. At Daniel's request, however, the king entrusted the affairs of the province of Babylon to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Daniel himself remained at court. So, I know it's a different scripture. It's a different read, a little bit from the complete Jewish Bible, and of course it's very different from the New International Version and the New King James Version and the King James Version. It reads differently, of course, than the other two that are listed here in this Bible. So, I just thought I would read that, because reading that over and over and over again, it just keeps hitting me that this last kingdom will not pass into the hands of another race and will absorb all the previous kingdoms. You know, we see that obviously Nebuchadnezzar's mind is troubled and disturbed. Take yourself for instance. Let yourself have a dream. You haven't had a dream in a year, 2 years. You have a dream. You yourself right now, you have a dream. You wake up the next morning. Is your mind going to be troubled? Or are you going to trust Yahweh? Are you going to demand that people tell you what this dream is? Or you're just going to cut them from limb to limb? Or, if they tell you, you're going to give them presents. Well, who does that sound like? Do what I want and I'll give you presents. Nebuchadnezzar's mind was very troubled. Very, 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 very troubled. A person who is walking with Yahweh, their mind's not going to be troubled like that. They're going to pray about the dream. They're going to seek discernment on the dream. But they're not going to tell people they're just going to start taking limbs until they find out what this dream means. Not a person walking with Yahweh. Okay, so Daniel chapter 3. I don't know how much time is passing through here, but a man just interpreted your dreams who believes in the God of heaven and has no bones about making that he worships the God of heaven, and that the God of heaven is the one who revealed the dream to him. And Nebuchadnezzar even said it from his own mouth, the revealer of mysteries, the revealer of secrets, is your God, the God that you worship, the God of heaven. You just got your dream interpreted, and I don't know how much time has passed. Cynthia, you raised that awareness. I'm not sure. But the next thing you see is Nebuchadnezzar building a statue in the Jerusalem. It says 6 cubits tall and 3 cubits wide, which he erected on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. And in the New English Bible, it says that 90 feet high and 9 feet broad. He had set up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. That's another thing. In Daniel's time, is Babylon the head of gold? So, that kind of, I don't know, that raises a spark for me when I read in Revelations and I read in Isaiah about Babylon falling. So, moving on. So I'm going to read, this one's not as long as the second chapter, but I'm going to read what the Jerusalem Bible says. King Nebuchadnezzar had a golden statue made, 6 cubits tall and 3 cubits wide, which he erected on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar then summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, men of law, and all the provincial authorities to assemble and attend the dedication of the statue erected by King Nebuchadnezzar. Verse 3, then the satraps, prefects, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, men of law, and all the provincial counselors, provincial authorities assembled for the dedication of the statue erected by King Nebuchadnezzar, and they stood there in front of the statue which King Nebuchadnezzar had erected. The herald then made this proclamation: men of all peoples, nations, and languages, this is required of you. The moment you hear the sound of horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, or any other instrument, you must prostrate yourselves and worship the golden statue erected by King Nebuchadnezzar. Those who do not prostrate themselves and worship shall immediately be thrown into the burning fiery furnace. And so, the instant the people heard the sound of horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and all other instruments, the men of all peoples, nations, languages prostrated themselves and worshipped the statue erected by King Nebuchadnezzar. Some Chaldeans then came forward and laid information against the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You have issued a decree, O king, to the effect that everyone on hearing the sound of horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, or any other instrument is to prostrate himself and worship the golden statue. And that anyone who does not prostrate himself and worship is to be thrown into the burning fiery furnace." Now there are certain Jews to whom you have entrusted the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men have ignored your command, O king. They do not serve your gods and refuse to worship the golden statue you have erected. Look at them just telling on them, just snitching, just straight up telling on them. And you don't think that kind of stuff's happening today? This was happening back then. Verse 13. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar sent for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The men were immediately brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar addressed them, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is it true that you do not serve my gods," little lowercase g gods, "and that you refuse to worship the sound of horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, or any other instrument? You are prepared to prostrate yourselves and worship the statue I have made. If you refuse to worship it, you must be thrown straight away into the burning fiery furnace. And where is the God who could save you from my power?" Verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to King Nebuchadnezzar, "Your question hardly requires an answer." Verse 17. "If our God, the one we serve, is able to save us from the burning fiery furnace and from your power, O king, he will save us. And even if he does not, then you must know, O king, that we will not serve your God, nor worship the statue you have erected." Hanging in to the very end, still saying no, even with our lives on the line. Ecclesiastes, what was will be again, what has been will be done again, and there is nothing new under the sun. The first kingdom was putting people to death, and you don't think the fourth one's gonna do it? Verse 19. These words infuriated King Nebuchadnezzar. His expressions were very different now as he looked at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He gave orders for the furnace to be made 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded certain stalwarts from the army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the burning fiery furnace. Not just step in, we're just going to bind you up and throw you in. You have no chance. Who is going to save you now? They were then bound, fully clothed, cloak, hose, and headgear. and thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Verse 22, the king's command was so urgent, and the heart of the furnace was so fierce, that the men carrying Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were burned to death by the flames from the fire. 23. The three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell, still bound, into the burning fiery furnace. Verse 24. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sprang to his feet in amazement. He said to his advisors, "Did we not have these three men thrown bound into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, O king." But he went on, "I can see 4 men walking about freely in the heart of the fire without coming to any harm. And the 4th looks like the son of the gods, lowercase g." Verse 26, Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." And from the heart of the fire out came Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Verse 27, the satraps, prefects, governors, and advisors of the king crowded around the 3 men to examine them. The fire had had no effect on their bodies. Not a hair on their heads had been singed. Their cloaks were not scorched. No smell of burning hung about them. 7 times hotter, killing men that walked up to it. And they don't even smell like fire. Nebuchadnezzar exclaimed, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He has sent his angel to rescue his servants, who, putting their trust in him, defied the order of the king and preferred to forfeit their bodies rather than worship any god but their own. I therefore decree as follows: men of all peoples, nations, and languages, let anyone speak disrespectfully of the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and I will have him torn limb from limb and his house razed to the ground, for there is no other God who can save like this." Verse 30. Then the king showered favors of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar the king to men of all peoples, nations, and languages throughout the world. May peace be always with you. It is my pleasure to make known the signs and wonders with which the Most High God has favored me. 33. How great are his signs, how mighty are his wonders. His sovereignty is an external sovereignty. His empire lasts from age to age. So yeah, like I said in the beginning, I just wanted to share the Jerusalem Bible wording. Like I said, my true understanding and revelation of Scripture really truly comes from the Jerusalem Bible. It's probably one of the most modern, even though it has some old words in it. There you go.